Hello, and welcome to Conversations with the FLICK CRITIC. I'm your host, John SMISTAD. Each week, I introduce you to a wide range of remarkably creative and inherently interesting people representing a broad spectrum spanning the world of entertainment. I invite you to listen, learn, laugh. Today's guest is Robert Rosenbaum. Robert is a produced playwright, a screenwriter, and director, and also a published author. I recently watched Robert's latest feature film release. It's called Basement. We're going to talk about that. But first of all, welcome to Conversations with the FLICK Critic, Robert. Glad to have you.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here.
Absolutely. So, like I say, I watched Basement recently on Amazon. This is a film about nine neighbors in a section of New York City who come together under very dire and volatile circumstances. They're all very different people in a number of ways, on a number of levels. And we watch what happens to them in a very confined space as they have to try to learn to live together, literally live together and get along and survive. Robert, this is Basement is a film based on a play that you wrote, and we were talking before the live stream started. This is the first time that you've taken one of your plays, made it into a film. What was that experience like for you, and what were some of the challenges maybe that you didn't foresee in making that happen?
Probably more challenges that I didn't foresee than I should have. It was very interesting. I mean, I picked the play because I felt I could do it on a reasonable budget that I had in a short time span. That I had. I chose also to do it pretty much verbatim from the play script, in the style of the play, as a one-room drama, never leaving the basement. When it was done on stage, it was the audience. It was made for a black box theater, for a small theater, and the audience was confined with the actors basically. And the bombs, there were bass speakers under the seats, so that when the bombs went off, it was the audience felt like they were in the basement with the cast. And I wanted to bring that type of feeling to the film. I wanted the people. I told my cinematographer he can't shoot into the basement. He can only shoot out. He can only shoot from the basement, because that's where we are. So that was one of it was a challenge. It was a decision. It makes for a very, confined movie. It's basically one set. And, but that's it. It came out. That was the feeling that I wanted. I wanted the feeling of the play on film. So it wasn't as cinematic as, a big feature.
Yeah, no, understood. But that's kind of the nature of the beast in terms of the story that you created and that you told. I don't want to give too much away about that story in Basement, or about the movie itself, but essentially what we have here, like I said, nine very different people. They are forced to come together. They are different, most of them, from each other in terms of culture, background, heritage, sensibility, opinions, color, and skin, pretty much the whole gamut. My question is, other than the fact that this is your livelihood and your bread and butter and how you make a living, what inspired you? What moved you to sit down and, first of all, write a play about this particular dynamic and then make it into a film? Because this is something, what happens in this film is obviously something that matters to you, Robert.
Yeah, that's very true. I do like, first of all, in the format of a confined space, throwing a bunch of people in there and shaking them up, that is a very theatrical format. A lot of plays go on that because they're based more on character than on story or the action. Sure. So you're you're dealing with character studies. Yeah. The story actually first came to mind way back, right during the Iraq War, or when I was watching and thinking. Lived in Brooklyn at the time, and thinking, what would happen if they came? What if happened if somebody came here and started bombing? And I'd go in my basement. And then I started researching the London Blitz. But what I liked about it is, in Brooklyn, you are in that environment. You walk on the street and everybody looks different. The people look different. There's different races, different communities, and you're all living together. And you live together on the street, and it's fine. What happens if you're forced, but you don't necessarily know everybody that you pass by on the street. And you're not necessarily forced into a situation where you have to be in a space in an emergency, and depending on these people. So it kind of built from there. It didn't, I didn't like the state of the world at the time. There were a lot of things I wanted to say, and then 2008 came along, and I thought, oh, well, the world has changed, the country has changed, everything's good, and nothing will ever be bad again. And the play literally went in a drawer. It came out in 2015. And it was very much a statement on, where we had come and the division in the country. And that's really what I wanted to talk about was, this divide of people who, and especially in a situation of people who live together, who live in the same community with very different opinions and different lives and lifestyles.
Yeah, and that comes across in your movie and in the story as it unfolds. Robert, I'll be honest with you. Initially, I thought that this was a movie that would give us stock characters, and I thought, quite frankly, that the white guy, like you and me, would be somebody to be loathed, and we somebody who should feel guilty about being a white man now and for the rest of his life. I did not find that in your movie, and I think that speaks to you as a writer. And to you, looking at things, the dynamics in our country in a broad spectrum, really in our world. And in the end, you fleshed out these people. There was one scene in particular between the two primary male leads in a conversation that revealed who this guy, who could have been a stock racist character. You gotta understand. I don't know if it's empathy that was created, but you got an understanding of this guy and say, okay, why would he be the way that he is? That's really tricky ground, really tough to pull that off and not walk away thinking, okay, this is what this filmmaker wanted me to think about these different people. How did you avoid doing that? And was that something you were conscious of, Robert, when you were writing your story, when you put it on the stage and when you put it on film?
Yeah, I think I was pretty conscious of it. I knew, and a lot of that came in the relationship between those two characters. Yeah. And I find that in real life, I mean, I don't know about you, I don't know about your viewers, but I have people that I am associated with, that I work with. There might have been some people in my family that have different views that I don't agree with. And some that I find particularly offensive, but we still live together, we still work together. And this is something that I think, and I tried to bring out in the play, is this is something that has been there for a long time. Yeah. But it came out so strong in the last 4 or 5 years that the division, where it used to be, okay, these people, we have different views, but we get along. and that started breaking down in our society. And that's where you have these two men who are on such a far different ends of the spectrum, and yet have been friends for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of the things I wanted to bring out, is that we do live together.
Yeah. And that was a consistent theme and phrase, that was used with all the characters in your film, to point that out. And I think that's extremely important to understand that in the end, while there was like a branch of hope extended to us as an audience, this wasn't a pat. Okay, now, like you said before, everything's fine. Here we go. New York, in your vision, in your film, wasn't just being attacked from an unknown force, country, entity. They were fighting with each other, within the city, against each other, and it was a horrifying mess. The way that I won't give away the final images, but the way that that we come to find out what's happening in New York City at this time, which is going to lead to another question. I assume you're probably a native New Yorker, and you're in New York.
I've lived there I wasn't born in New York, but yes, I've lived there a long time.
New York City, specifically, which is the setting of your film, has been through some crap before. In the 70s, they went bankrupt as a city, for God's sake, and the feds had to bail them out. In the 80s, crack addicts and crime took over the city, and New York came back from that. I think it's fair to say that New York City right now is a broken town in a lot of ways. People certainly were hopeless in those instances before in New York, and even before that, but they bounced back. Do you have hope for New York, Robert, as someone who lives there, and it sounds like has lived there most of your life? And if so, why moving forward?
Well, if you're talking about the city in particular, I actually, right now, I live up in the Catskills,
Okay.
but I still work, and I'm still part of the city, and I know what's going on there now. And yeah, but New York. Well, but I was there. Part of the influence on this was 9/11. I was in the city during 9/11,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, New Yorkers.
I'm sorry, I left that out, Robert. That's in our lifetime the most profound.
Yeah, that was pretty. That was a pretty profound, moment in time that lasted.
Go ahead, sure.
And yeah, and interestingly enough, at that point we did come together. So the city came together so strongly, and especially in those weeks after. And I remember the bars, but unlike COVID, immediately after the disaster, after the attack, after what went on, we could go out into the streets and be together. During the blackouts, people came out of their apartments and were in the streets together. And ironically, during COVID, it was, so we have a lot of things going on in the world, in the country, and then COVID, everybody had a retreat from each other. And that's very unlike New Yorkers. We work out our problems in the restaurants and in the bars and in the street. And that was a problem of the COVID incident, which of course is national and worldwide. So I think that though this is set in a Brooklyn neighborhood, I do envision it as a national, a statement on the nation. And yes, I think New York will always come back as a city, and I hope we'll come back as a nation. I think the problem, the division, goes outside the city too, very much, and that's really where where our struggle is right now as a country, I think. And the cities, we like the basement, the city, you are forced together in the cities. Whereas as you get further from the cities and you are not forced together into these type of mixed communities. Outside of the cities, communities are very very much the same. You know, they're usually made from the same people that have developed those cities,
Yeah.
whether they be, you know, whatever race or heritage they're from.
Yeah.
It's less homogenous than New York City, and I think that's one of the strengths of the city. One of the points of basement is, you know, when you're forced to survive together, you have to, you know, you can't bite, you know, cut off your nose to spite your face.
Yeah. Well, arguably, and I don't even know if there's a decent argument, New York City is the most important city on our planet. And, you know, the strong survive. New York has proved that time and time again. I have hope that the city will bounce back, and that like souls and hearts will come together and realize, hey, we're never going to agree on everything, but we got to move forward for the sake of us as a community of New Yorkers. And I believe that is going to happen. I really would like you to talk about the cast in Basement, Robert. Casting these people, I thought, in my opinion, I watched a lot of film. I watched a lot of independent film, a lot of small budget independent film. I consistently find the quality of acting really high caliber. Talk about this cast, which I thought again was roundly exceptional in Basement.
Well, I felt it was exceptional too. I felt I got very lucky. I mean, I worked hard to find the cast, but they are all professionals. It is a SAG film. They are working. They're all working actors with decent resumes. Pretty extensive on some of them. Yeah. And I'll tell you, as a director, they were a dream to work with, because I've been on a lot of films in different positions. I was very young out of college doing, you know, menial stuff on films and art, being in the art department. And this was one of the most friendly and cooperative cast and crew. Wow. We didn't have a single fight really in the whole production, which was a short, intense, and of course we were all masked, which was
this was shot during COVID.
This was shot during the first moment that you could do it after COVID started.
Wow.
It was. Okay. You know, all the rules were experimental, were being new, were being formed. There were no vaccines yet. So, yeah, that was a choice I made. Maybe not the wisest, but the movie was already started when this thing happened, and it did cause a delay. And, of course, it caused a lot of budget issues, a lot of which have not gone away anyway. There's still so many rules and restrictions because of COVID. I think it's a little easier than it was when we did this. Yes. But the cast was amazing. I had a very good casting director who brought in, you know, some people that I just was unaware I could get. I mean, the person who plays Sal is Rizwan Manji. And his resume is a 30-year resume in major films, television,
big time stuff. Yeah.
And he brought to that character. I kind of thought in the play, I thought of that character as one of the more minor characters, and it really isn't. I don't think there is a minor character in this piece, and he just brought so much to it. Brian Krause, of course, is another 30-year veteran with television film behind him. And he brought an empathy to Jake and an understanding that was just incredible. And then Hunter, who I wasn't so familiar with, but he was in Orange is the New Black, and he's been in a lot of television and film also. And it is, he plays a pretty tough character, and he's a pussycat, of course, but he's always cast. He's always cast. He's a character actor. He looks a certain way. He's going to be cast as that big tough guy.
Yep.
And but just such an understanding that he was able to bring out, and an empathy, so that you didn't completely hate this. You got to be.
That's what I was saying.
The audience has to be questioning themselves if they're liking this guy. Why am I liking him? Why do I feel bad for him? Is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy with bad ideas? And he just brought all that to the role, and it was very spectacular. And his wife, again, another working actress who just killed that part. It was a very hard part, because his wife has very similar views, but isn't a weak woman, and yet is married to this very strong-minded man.
Yeah, what is the actress's name who played the wife?
Shannon Marie Sullivan.
Yeah.
She was brilliant, and then
yeah.
who played the Christy Pradas, who came in as Angela, just brought so much. And then R.J. Brown, again, he's been working since he was a kid, and it was a very hard role for me. The R.J. is the African American, and and I had to write that, and it's always hard to write out of your race. I think you as a writer, I want to be careful. I want to try and have empathy, try and bring my experience as much as I can into that character, and then it helps a lot with it. I do work with the actors to make sure that they're feeling it, that I'm not off base.
Yeah.
But it's a very he's in a lot of ways he's the hero of the piece too. And it was shot in 9 days.
Wow.
So there wasn't a lot of retakes.
Nope.
There wasn't a lot of room. It was this was being shot somewhat in the way of a play, although it's not at all. It's not at all a film version of a play, or a filming of a play. It is a film version of a play.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. There's a difference.
And so the actors, they brought so much, and working under extremely difficult conditions, as everybody was, but for an actor especially, the COVID conditions, just so many years in film, and there's a feeling when you're on a film, and a camaraderie, and so much was different because of COVID. I mean, I have shots on the website of our lunches where we have 6-foot tables with one person on one side and one person on the other side. We didn't have you couldn't have craft tables, which is, this is the break table where everybody hangs out around when you're not shooting
and get to know each other. Yeah.
And that was gone too. It was it's an interesting experience shooting at that moment in time.
Understood. And a lot of people in the profession, in the film and television industry, stage, had to do that, and it was just the way it was. And it's remarkable that work like Basement and other films that I've seen and productions I've seen overcame the challenge and did a hell of a job in terms of all being pros, like we talked about, getting together and devoting to the best they can do on the project. again, the movie is called Basement. It is available on to rent on Amazon. I like to ask this question of every creative person I talk to, like I said, people, broad spectrum of the entertainment world. When you realize I want to make my life about creating, you know, you're a playwright, you make films, you're an author. At what point did you realize I'm going to make a commitment, man? I'm going to go and I'm going to make my life and my career about being a creator and try to reach an audience?
I think for a lot of us, it's not a choice; it's a necessity.
Yeah.
You and anybody who's been in it as long as I have has been and gone through phases. You know, when you just it's a tough business. Some people get lucky early, some people never get lucky, and you know, there's talent element, there's a luck element, there's all sorts of points, but you just keep getting drawn back to it. I don't want to say drag, but drawn back to it.
Mostly voluntary, but no,
because you know you got to do it. I mean, you know, I have to do it, and it's there. I've done other things, and you know, it's not it. I don't know if I've had things to say. Everybody has things to say, but there's just a drive to you know, to be in this business, any part of the entertainment or media industry, you have to have a drive to want to do it, because it beats you up no matter what.
Yeah.
And
I hear this all the time, Robert. Sure.
well, I'm sure even you know, you're in media too. It's you do it because
It's part of the ballgame.
something. If you don't do it because you have to, you won't do it. You won't last.
Perfectly stated. No, yeah, and I understand what you mean. You're drawn to it. Some people are drawn to science. Some people are drawn to be a teacher, police officer, president of the United States, whatever it is. But when you're a creator, it's hard to really explain or express why it's important to you.
Mm-hmm.
Your soul knows, and that's what you're trying to share with other people in the human condition. I like to ask this question. Usually I ask favorite movie, but since you're a playwright, one or maybe a group of plays, Robert, that you yourself can't watch enough. You love them that much, they resonate that much with you, that that's where they're at in your life in terms of how much you admire them.
I guess you know, I come from the background of I was a big Beckett, Pinter. Those are plays that have resonated and kind of shaped my writing as far as writers go. And
we're not messing around there on your influences.
Yeah, I mean that.
Yeah.
And in fact, I did a short that was developed from a play of mine that was kind of not a takeoff, but
interpretation.
Of Godot,
Wow.
which I turned into a short, an animated short, which I had a lot of fun with.
Oh, cool.
It was called My Conversation with Dog, and it takes place in a park between a man and a dog. And on a play stage, the dog is played by a person, you know, and much the in the way that, you know, not necessarily, well, could be in costume, a full costume, but it was fun to bring it to film as an animated, because I could have an actual dog,
Yeah.
an animated dog and an animated person
Yeah.
talking. So that's my influences were from that theater group basically, and I kind of brought that in. One of the influences on Basement, as a matter of fact, is 12 Angry Men, which
There you go.
is actually was a Playhouse 90 piece to begin with, more than
That's
a
right.
play.
Yeah.
But again, it's the same situation of a group of different people forced together to accomplish a task.
Absolutely. Yeah. Boy, that's a classic film, 12 Angry Men.
Yeah.
Talk about a cast too.
Yeah, there you go. Well, there's been several versions of it that
Yeah.
all have very incredible casts.
Yeah. Boy, no, yeah, absolutely, no doubt about that. Um, Boy, this has been fun. We have been talking with Robert Rosenbaum, and again, he is a produced playwright, a screenwriter, and director. He is also a published author. Robert, thanks so much for being with us. We really appreciate it. I really enjoyed this conversation with you.
Well, thank you, John. I enjoyed it too. I enjoy all your pieces there. I've watched several.
Thank you.
And you have a great insight and great questions. Bring out a lot.
I appreciate it. That means a lot to me. And I have found, I'm a writer, and maybe I'm kind of outside the box there, but writers love doing interviews. So I appreciate. He said sarcastically, but I appreciate you doing this. You did a fine job, and like I say, I found it damn interesting to talk to you and learn about you. And got to remind people again, your latest project is Basement. It is a feature film. I have watched it. It got through to me. I thought I was going to see one thing, as I told Robert. I ended up seeing something that was different, and it was well worth my investment of time and attention and emotion, quite frankly. Again, Basement is the film, and it is available for rent on Amazon Prime Video. That'll do it for this episode of Conversations with the Quick Flick Critic. I am your host, John SMISTAD. The show live streams every Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on Rude Rangers TV. You can also download the Rude Rangers Unite app on any number of platforms, including the major ones that we all know: Roku, Amazon Fire TV, Google Play, and any number of other platforms where you watch your live streams. So until next time, I wish everybody nothing but good things. As Robert and I have been discussing, we can come together. It is a choice. We don't have to be best friends or celebrate or embrace or any of that, but we can get along and we can move forward as a country and as a people. And we owe our kids and our grandkids and future generations that, for God's sake, for sure. Folks, listen, learn, laugh. Goodbye, everybody.